Hello, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Chats and Vibes with Miss T. Vibing on the mic with this evening is Mr. Seth, right out of the Lion's Den. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience tonight, Seth.
All right. Well, first, thank you for this opportunity. I greatly appreciate it. My name is Seth, and I am, like she said, the the creator of the Lions Den. But I also have co-hosts, and the podcast was generated by individuals that were prior military. Actually, still some in, but we will sit around and talk about leadership, growth, and development as men and as fathers and how we can get outside of just talking to each other and connect with the world. And so we've been doing that for almost 3 years now.
Okay, so are you active in the military or are you a veteran?
So I'm a veteran. I retired two almost 2 years ago.
Okay, well, thank you for your service, Mr. Seth.
You're welcome.
Well, before we get started, go ahead and just give everyone where they can find your podcast as well. I
Okay,
always like to give people that opportunity to do so.
absolutely. So our podcast is, let's see, you can find it on Facebook, The Lions Den with Seth, or facebook.com/, The Lions Cast, and The Lions Cast on Instagram, Twitter, and also on TikTok. And also we have a channel, a network on Roku and Amazon Fire TV, and it's
Okay.
called Lions Pride Network, where we give individuals an opportunity not just to listen to our content, but other content creators. And if they can stream them on demand. So we're available. Just make sure if you Google us, you put with Seth. Because if you just put the Lions Den, it may come up with a adult a- an adult superstore. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Hmm.
Okay. Y'all hear that. So make sure y'all put Seth's name in there. Otherwise, y'all go end up on another side of the fence.
Hmm.
Uh, so thank you for that little tip because you probably would have shocked some people if they would have just Googled that name and went to pushing buttons.
Absolutely. It's happened.
Wondering what dimension you done sent them to. Because, yeah. So I'm glad for that little waiver that you gave them, so to speak. So, Mr. Seth, I want to thank you again before we even jump into this for being my guest today. I think we kind of been hit and missing each other for the last month or so. So
Right.
finally, just to top it up on the mic tonight. So
Hmm.
for those out there, he and I will be discussing the different levels of discipline, and when it comes to our children. We have been hearing, off and on about those of a minor age that, go out into the world, they get in trouble, they do all these acts. Um, and a lot of people seem to do not want to hold the kids accountable for that. They kind of want to point the blame at the parent.
Hmm.
Um, what is your initial thought about that for those people who have that initial finger point blame that they
Hmm.
want to immediately blame the parent, saying that the parent didn't, I guess do what they should have done to not have their child act in that certain way.
Well, you know what? It's always easy to, point the blame when they're not in that situation, right? Just like your title says, the levels of discipline. There's the levels of growth, and so sometimes individuals' parents are still in the stage of their life when they are growing themselves, and for other individuals to judge those parents that aren't doing what they feel as though they should be doing, if they were to lower the level of pride and utilize humility, they can see that individuals work and understand things at different stages and not to judge that parent because they may be doing the best that they can with what they're dealing with.
Exactly. And you also have to think about some parents are, I want to say, on different spectrums of parenting when it comes to age wise, because you have some parents that are very young. They
Hmm.
pretty much are growing up with their kid, because they're not at that level of maturity either.
Hmm.
You have some parents that become parents later in life.
Mhm.
So they figure, that they, probably don't have the energy to be as strict or not to do with, certain levels of discipline. They might be more laid back.
Mhm.
So it is kind of hard to blame the parent for what they should have or should not have done.
Mhm.
But when it comes to actual levels of discipline, are you for it or are you against it? And I guess I'll be more specific when I be in regards to, I guess, spanking or in some terms, grounding, what people call it. So,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about that?
All right, so it's a two-way thing. Just like with any relationship, you have to have a relationship with your child. And with
Hmm.
that, that means that they are an offspring of you, but they're not many yous, if that makes sense. So you have to understand your temperament and also understand theirs. So, for example, my son, there was a time when he was younger, I whooped him one time and just one spanking, but he saw the look in my eyes and he knew I was not playing. That was the only time I had to do that, you see. And then also, I talked to him with a level of authority. And when I say to do something, I meant to do that. I didn't have conversations. You get what I mean? So there are certain parents that negotiate with their children. I don't negotiate. Now, when it comes down to my daughter, I have not had to spank her because I tell her one thing and she can sense the tone in my voice to say, okay, I don't want to disappoint daddy, you see.
Hmm.
And so I have to realize that even though my children are different, they have to be disciplined different because they are different individuals. Not to throw at them, when I was your age, when I was your age, that means that's ego. That means I want to tell my children how better of a person I was at their age. And that's not what they need to hear because they're still in the growing stage. So, to answer your question, it is levels to it, but that's how I had to work with that.
Yeah, I had different levels also with my children. I had one that I rarely had to spank.
Mhm.
If I raised my voice or said things, with aggressiveness, they knew I wasn't playing. And
Mhm.
I think that's where a lot of parents mess up because I think it's a fine line with being communicative with your child versus being that quote unquote their friend. And I told my kids years, I am not your one of your little friends, and I meant that. Um, but you can still come to me, talk wise. My door is always open, but just know that there is a line there that you cannot cross.
Correct.
So there are issues or situations when I have had to just, physically discipline versus verbally discipline.
Mhm.
But you have kids that they will test your inner gangster. They will push you, to the edge. And I think a lot of them try to see exactly how far they can push their parent to the edge.
Correct.
And for those, you end up probably having to be more aggressive, more hands on with versus the one that you may not even have to say a word. You just look at them a certain way and they already know, okay, let me, do what I need to do, or I must be doing something because, daddy and mama looking at me a certain way and they get it. But some kids, it's almost like it's a little loose screw somewhere or a little disconnect that, you might have to find a different level to reach them at. Do you
Well,
agree?
I believe that it's a couple of different things.
Hmm.
Um, just like in a working environment, most occupations have progressive levels of discipline. Okay.
Hmm.
So you will have the verbal, right?
Verbal.
And then
Yeah.
you have a step above that. And then you have
Hmm.
a step above that. But what happens is when individuals, and going back to our point, parents, what we don't do all the time is follow through. Okay. So the reason
Mm.
why our children want to test us because they've heard it before and didn't nothing happen. You
When
get
we
what I
say we
mean?
go whoop them or say we go take something
Right.
from them
And
and
then
then
we don't
never
and
follow
we don't
through.
Exactly. So I think that in order to build that credibility with your child, so they know what they can and can't do, tell them once, and then let them know what would be the ramifications if they do it again. And if they do it again because they don't believe you, show them. Just don't
Hmm.
keep repeating yourself, because then it becomes old news. You see, but then this is the dangerous part. What happens is, if you do not deal with it at the right level, you see, like the the punishment has to be commensurate to the crime, if that makes sense, right? So if you are upset but you don't handle it at the lower level, you keep saying it, keep saying it, keep saying it, now you're at the level of festivity, and that kid did the same thing that they had did way before, but now you're mad. So now you want to exert a level of frustration on the child, so now it's not a whooping, it's borderline abuse, because now you're upset. You see, where you were just trying to tell them something, but you did not follow through and you didn't handle it at the right level yourself.
Okay, when you say borderline abuse, go a little deeper
Okay,
there.
what I mean borderline abuse is any type of discipline. Let's use that. Any type of physical discipline that you are giving to a child out of your own emotions, that's abuse. You see.
And if that's the case, probably a lot of people have
Oh, yeah.
abused their kids then.
Exactly. No, I get it, because the thing is, you're not doing it to teach them a lesson. You're doing it because you're hurt. You see, because you're upset and you're mad. You see, so that's the difference. Because the deal is, since you're so hurt, and we do it as adults, because I'm so hurt, I want to do A, B, C, and D to you just so you can feel how hurt I am. There isn't a lesson there. That just means I want to inflict pain. You see, but if we handle it at this level, say, hey, look, I'm gonna tap that butt. I told you once. You do it again, you know what's coming. They do it again, boom, tap them, because you're not mad. You're like, yo, I didn't already told you. But you keep telling them, you keep telling them, they keep doing it, they keep doing it, you keep telling them, you keep telling them. Now you're mad. Now it's coming to the point where you feel disrespected.
Okay, so let's go. I want to switch it up a little. So when
Mhm.
you say when you don't address it at certain levels and you keep it in and you keep piling and building it on top of each other, what if that incident, scenario, whatever that child did takes you to that moment right there, which means ain't no talking, ain't nothing finna build up. I'm finna let you have it. I still got my emotions involved because you've hurt them. I wouldn't consider that being abuse. If I
Understand?
if this is our first, initial, because just from my personal experience, there were instances that, my son had did that there was no if you do it the next time. This is
Hmm.
gonna be the only time, which means yeah, I had to take it there because of the particular, situation it was.
Hmm.
So I needed them to understand that, this was not okay. This cannot ever happen again. So you
Absolutely.
can go ahead and, erase it out of your mind, dome, this can never happen because it is not okay.
Hmm.
So I think some things you need to nip in the bud immediately. Ain't no, don't ever do it again. But I think also it depends on the child.
Absolutely. And that's the deal. It depends on the child, but then it
Mhm.
also depends on and listen, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with with applying discipline, physical discipline on your children, because it sometimes it's necessary, right? Because you have to know your child. However, only thing I'm saying is having the emotional intelligence to know the difference between giving a child, teaching a child a lesson, and then trying to beat something in them. Those are two different things. You get what I
Yeah,
mean?
some things
Because
are not going to be beaten in.
that's what I mean. So, but then to your point, if there was something that happened that was so frustrating, you had to nip it in the bud. Hey, no qualms about that. But I'm talking about for individuals that, like, say, for example, if my son did something real silly, right? if he did something real silly, and let's say he was, you know, whooping the age of, let's say 12, 11, 12, or whatever the case it is, I
Mhm.
need to really find out before my feelings get too far involved. What was his thought process? Now, if he was just no kidding being 100% defiant, that means there's a different conversation.
Mhm.
But if he thought about it and he made a wrong decision, I should not discipline him to the point where I'm frustrated to whoop him because he made a wrong decision.
Mhm.
Because at that age, I made wrong decisions. So now I'll be a walking contradiction, you see? Because what the crazy part is, I may have done the same thing and got away with it. He did.
Mhm.
So now I need to really think about it. All right, son, what was your logic behind it? If you just said, well, that was just something I wanted to do. Okay, now that was stupid. So no, and then I will handle it that way. But if you said, well, I thought about this, and this was that choice. Okay, I can see why you thought that way. Now, don't get me wrong, there still would be discipline, but at the same time, the
Not
discipline
physical.
has to be commensurate to whatever the issue is,
Mhm.
because there is certain times there are certain times when the child may have done something and it was not done on purpose, but they already felt bad about it.
Mhm.
Adding more on top of that could traumatize them, because not only were they feeling bad, now you're coming down on them. They're like, well, damn, not only did I feel bad, now I just got my butt whooped because I thought I was making the right decision.
Mhm. Yeah, I've had that. I can recall that happened to me when I was younger.
Hmm.
It was an incident that happened that was a full miscommunication,
Hmm.
that I was blamed for something and did not even get a chance to state my case. I just got, punished for it. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I did not even do anything. And most children always deny what they didn't do, but I seriously, honestly did not do what I was accused of.
See,
And I did not even get a chance to, I just had to take it, suck it up. And even to this
exactly.
day, whenever I get the chance, I bring it up and sneak it right on in there to my parent. Like, I got beat for nothing.
But if
And
you
I
think about it,
didn't do it.
not to cut you off, if you think about it, is you're still hurt, aren't you?
Not, I guess to a certain
Yeah.
degree, yes,
That's
because
what
I'm
I'm
like, I did
There
not
you
even
go.
get to state my case. I
Right.
mean,
That's what
how
I'm saying.
usually, how we always get or give the lecture, as I
Hmm.
call it before.
Hmm.
I didn't get my trial. I didn't.
See?
I didn't get my trial. So yes,
Hmm.
mother, I still feel a little salty
Hmm.
about that incident that happened in the backyard in our swimming pool. So yes, I
See?
do. Sure
Yeah.
do. So I'm not even going to deny that. But for those parents that, and I know you probably know some that do not condone discipline on no level, physical,
Hmm.
verbal, they are just, what do you think about that? I mean, it's their prerogative, of course, but
Hmm.
you think sometimes that's like a little setup for themselves
What do you mean?
by not enforcing any kind of discipline on their children, just letting them, the ones that I call the talkers, the one that we were talking about earlier, that's always saying what they're going to do. Don't do that. Or if you do it one more time and that's like their 10th time doing it, what do you say to those parents?
Nothing. Because they're grown. You get what I mean? Because the thing is, I just know this, that type of interaction, I don't condone it in my home. You see what I'm saying? So what I do is, I'm responsible for the energy in my home, you see. So if
Mhm,
there was a child walking around here doing A, B, C, and D, and I say, hey, don't do this, and I would talk to the parent, say, hey, listen, we don't do that here, you see.
mhm,
I hold the parent accountable. Now, if I'm at their house and their kids running around and doing A, B, and C, hey, that's their crib. If I don't like it, I need to leave. You see, there
mhm,
was a point where I would judge them. Look, that kid just go run all over, and they just go boo boo boo. But at the same time, sometimes our children are a direct reflection of how we were raised. You see, or a indirect reflection, meaning contradictory to how we were raised, because we were in such a strict household. We said to ourselves, hey, I'm not going to do that to my kids. I'm gonna let my kids do whatever they want. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. In your
Yeah.
house you do that, you see, but in my house or in my presence, especially when I'm responsible for the safety of this child, that's not it. So
Okay.
other than that, I don't say nothing to him. I laugh. You know what I'm saying? But I don't
Mhm.
say nothing to him.
Mm. So I guess my thought with that is when you fast forward and those children that that parent never disciplined, never tried to correct, now they are in major trouble now. And now they don't see why.
Hmm.
Or, something happens to the kid and now they want everyone to kind of run to aid when I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, let me see if I can make more of an example. If you had a child that, just was, I hate to say bad, but he was bad. He was
Hmm.
bad from, terrorized. He was the neighborhood bully. He bullied people at school on the school bus as a teenager. He's, vandalizing neighbors' cars until he gets to the age that now, um, he's in the system. He's old enough to be held legally accountable for his actions. But
Hmm.
something goes wrong and now the parent wants the neighborhood to hold signs and walk the streets and do XYZ, but this was the same kid that we used to come and tell you about doing all this stuff and you didn't want to hear it.
Hmm. So my thought process about that is, and this may sound kind of out there, but the deal is individuals will create what they tolerate. So if this child has was growing up, it's like a plant, right? If a
Mhm.
plant is crooked as it's growing up, if there is nothing there to help straighten that child out, whatever the mechanism is, the
Mhm.
child is going to grow up to be an older version of themselves. So the thing is that if I was in a situation where I saw this transpire, I would do one and two things. I would either um, try to be a mentor at that time to show them something different, because some children
Mhm.
have a lack of exposure to things, right? So I would try to do that, or I would just, hey, mind my business and keep it pushing. But if I mind my business, I mind my business all the way through. You get
Yeah.
what I mean? So like
Mhm.
if I saw the child acting up, when he was little and now he's grown, hey, you get what I mean? Now, don't get me wrong, it does take a village, but it also takes a a communal thought. Meaning, I have to be able, for example, I have to be able to let you know I love you so much. Now we're talking about black love right now. I love you so much that I will treat your child like my own, but you have to understand that I love you so much that you will let me.
Mhm.
So if that does not happen, then it becomes individuality households. It's no longer black love. It's this is what I do in my house and this is what you do in your house. You see? So
Mhm.
the the village concept has to start then. So therefore, when that boy is running around and acting up on the school bus, the neighbors will yank his little butt up and say, hey, you get what I mean? But then the mother does not say anything, said, thank you, say thank you for that. I was not able to, or you connected with my child this way. But
Mhm.
if we don't have that, then we have him incarcerated.
Yes. So going back to the village, I wanted to what are your thoughts on having like the village, meaning neighbors, the school system, teachers, superintendents, whatever, giving that what we called old school discipline? Because back in my day, I don't know how old you are, but we got spankings in school. You got spanked by the neighbors down the street. When your daddy came home, they told your daddy you got another one.
Mhm.
It was, just that type of community. But I mean, parents can't be everywhere at once. A lot of our kids, are two-faced, meaning they act a certain way at home, then they get out in the world and
Of
just act
course.
a fool.
Mhm.
So you need that extra set of eyes and hands, ears, to help with raising kids to back
Mhm.
then and even today. So do you think that has affected the kids in any kind of way when they remove those levels of discipline from school?
Well, no, not necessarily, but what I do believe is that it's not the school's responsibility. Okay.
It's not.
I don't believe it's the school's responsibility. The school's responsibility is to be an institution for learning. And but it's the responsibility of the parent and teacher to have the working relationship to give that child everything they need, and that teacher be or that parent be able to listen to the teacher to say, hey, he needs his butt beat. And then she said, "Oh, okay." Or he say, "Okay, cool, right?" Because he tells me this, but I'm glad. So it's a level of trust there. Now, don't get me wrong. There are children or schools, and I was old enough to experience that, where the teachers say, "Hey, if he's out of line, we allow you to, to give him a whooping." You get what I mean? I do remember that, but now, after becoming older, doing a lot more reading and thinking of the psychological hindrance that is happening within our community, I don't believe it's the institution's responsibility to discipline the child. Because if you think about it, the school, the dynamics, or excuse me, the construct of education has not changed in over 100 years. So, but with that being said, we have so much technology and science to show that you cannot teach every child the same way. So that means there may be some children acting up because they're low key bored. You get what I
Mhm.
mean? You're trying to give them something that they're not picking up. And it's almost like certain um certain tests, okay, for our children will measure their level of intelligence, but what it's doing is trying to make sense or trying to gauge the competency level of a fish trying to climb up a tree. Why would you do that? Do you get what I mean? So that's what I think a lot of our children are going through. And I'm saying we just be in general, say, look, that boy
Mhm.
just bad. That boy just bad. Is he really? Because if you gave him a different test, he may be a low key genius, but
Mhm.
he's not being stimulated the way you think he should.
I agree and disagree.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think, just like with everything, it does start at home.
Yes,
But like we were saying earlier, we have different levels mentally of parents. What
yes,
one parent may notice, another parent may not.
correct.
So I think that's when a teacher would come in handy to view certain things that, we miss. And a lot of teachers will address it. And then you have some teachers that don't care. They just there to, do what they're supposed to do. And like you say, they out of it. They
Hmm.
there to do what they supposed to do, and anything outside of that box is
Hmm.
no concern to them.
Correct.
Um, and that's like a two-edged sword to me, because again, I think they are there to for a main reason, which is to educate.
Correct.
Um, but also I think it's also to be that other set of hands as well. I think
Hmm.
children need parenting in more places than just home. I mean, what if they have that parent that is missing all the signs, you know, when we were talking about children's and their behavior, what if it's something deeper that this kid is going through that the parent don't see and the teacher is just ignoring? Who, I mean,
So
what do you
then in
do in
that
those
so in that
situations?
case, so now it's outside of the teacher and the parent, if to your example. You see, so what you need is one part of that equation for an individual to care. That's all.
Mhm.
So, for example, if a child is acting up in school and the parent cares, and these papers, report cards coming back, substandard. Like, wait a minute, my son or my daughter, I know is smarter than this. What's
Mhm.
going on? Then that parent have a conversation, a candid conversation with the teacher. Say, hey, not blame. And this is another thing we do too. We blame the teachers. Okay, right off the bat, without listening. Hey, what's going on with Junior? Okay, I'm seeing these report cards. I know he's smart, but what is he or is he not getting? And then, but it's a constant conversation, because when a parent receive a report card, they should not be surprised if they've really been active in that child's,
That's what I was just about to say. Don't be so quick to, wanna blame the teacher.
yeah,
You
right,
also have to,
right.
you
So,
know your kid, whether
right.
you want to admit it or not, you know your child.
Now, on the flip side, if the parent doesn't care, but the teacher does,
Mhm,
see, only thing the teacher can do, okay, is advise and suggest and keep it pushing, right? Because if that teacher does not have the legal or administrative power to do the thing, and as long as the child is not in danger, all they can do is talk to the parents, say, hey, this is what your child is doing, boom, boom, boom. But if there is a teacher that cares a little bit more, say, hey, listen, I've been watching, Danielle, and she's having issues when I ask her questions. She puts her hands down. She's very smart on paper, but she doesn't connect with us, right?
mhm.
So that means if that person cares, if that teacher cares, we need the other side from the parent to be on the same plane. If not, that parent say, my daughter good. It's you boo 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 boo. And then the conversation closed. So it needs to be a cooperation communication. So
Mhm.
then therefore it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm sending my child to school, and if he's bad, just whoop his butt. You see, you get what I mean? It's
Mhm.
levels to it. Just like you said, it's levels to discipline. And sometimes we can be in a position where we're so quick to bring the rod, we don't even know what's going on internally.
That was gonna be my next statement, that, sometimes it's deeper than what we think, that I think some kids do the things they do for attention, um, screaming for help or trying to get that attention of a certain parent, for whatever reason, and before we have a conversation about it, we just, issue the punishment or get the strap or whatever, and I guess it would depend if it was like a one-off situation, but if it seemed to be the same thing over and over and over and same thing, conversation, same conversation, it's something deeper there that you might want to, you know, take a day off work and just, sit down and think about what's really going on.
or
And
or even come up to the school. I'm gonna give you an example.
mhm,
Here recently with the pandemic, picture a child that's finally going back to school, okay, acting up, acting up, acting up. The teacher is just trying to, not to call the parent because the parent is trying to work, okay, but acting up, acting up, acting up. Find out that the reason why this child is acting up, he's the oldest sibling of three. That's number one. Number
mhm,
two, the parent works at nights. Okay. And number three, it's hardly enough food there. So if you think about it, here's this child spending more time awake at school, okay, trying at school to concentrate and hungry. So he or she has other different things that's based off of the hierarchy of needs to eat, have other things that's keeping them distracted. So they're already grumpy. You know how you get hangry. You don't want to walk around being mad. But these children don't know how to articulate what's going on inside. You see? So many different
Definitely,
things.
something more deeper. Definitely another deeper conversation,
Right.
especially when it comes to parents who, if you are, a single parent home and you have to be going in different directions just to keep things afloat. I mean, that's when I say you need those different eyes and ears and the village to, kind of, keep to kind of get in there when and fit in those cracks and crevices when you can't. And
But that's
I
the double-edged sword as well.
yeah, that's why I was like, that's the double-edged sword and a whole nother podcast
Because
topic.
right, because the thing is, A, I have to be able to trust, but B, we know that there's pedophiles out there. So what type of checks and balances are you going to have for your village? Because things aren't the same. Because individuals will say, back in my day, we used to be able to do this. Yeah,
Mhm,
but you didn't know. Or here's the thing, individuals knew, they just didn't say anything. You see,
mhm,
they knew when that dude down the street was out of line because of how he was looking at these kids, but they didn't say nothing. But now, based off of technology and things that we have at our disposal right now, that individual have to be identified as a predator. You see what I'm saying? So
mhm.
you have to be able to have a certain level of trust, but also have to be able to verify that this individual is even psychologically sane enough to tell me something about my child. You get what I'm saying? And that I would be able to believe them.
Yeah. Do you think that village would ever come back as strong as it was
I believe,
decades ago?
I believe it's already there. However, it's done differently. You see, um, like for example, I think it's based off of. I don't. I think it's based more off of economic status now.
Hmm.
And-
Elaborate.
right. The reason why I say that is because if I know that we're living in a certain, let's say a certain subdivision where
Mhm,
the income is of a fluent income of, let's say, over six figures, and
mhm,
I know what individuals do. I believe that they will be in the situation that they don't want to risk losing anything that they've worked hard for. And if I say, hey, I work at such and such a time, this is what I need. If you're able to, blah, 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 blah. That individual, not saying that they will, they won't have any inhibitions as far as trusting, but I believe they will be more comfortable, not just in economic status, high economic status, but also lower economic status, because individuals feel like, hey, we're in the same situation, we're in this together. I got your back, you got my back, but we're all facing the same devil, if you will. You get what I mean? So let's help each other.
yeah.
So I think it's happening. But I believe that what hurts is sometimes the social media. You get what I'm saying? Social media put out different things, and what we don't do as individuals is verify. Hey, is this true? Is this
Mhm.
really true? Or am I just spewing mess just to stir up stuff? You get what I mean? So I think that if, first of all, before we go too far on the tangent, your village starts in your home first. It starts in the home. So whatever level that you are at, whatever standard that you're at, you will be able to reverberate that on the outside of your home into your community, your neighborhood, and your community. So individuals know Seth does this and this, he does the same thing here as he do over there, as he do over there. So people already know my track record. But when you have individuals that put on a face outside, but they inside doing something else out of line, that's a contradiction. You see? So you can't trust the individual that you don't know.
Yeah. I'm pretty much have been the same across the board with my kids, my nieces, nephews, or whatever. And even like with some of my peers and their children, I'm not
Mhm.
going to do anything to your kid that I didn't do to mine.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm not going to let yours get away with stuff that I didn't let mine get away with. Um,
Mhm.
And if you don't like it, keep your child over there
Right.
because we don't do that over over here.
Mhm.
Um, once I tell them, and I can say when I took my kids somewhere, they were never a problem. You know how you have to give them the talk in the car, even if you got to snatch their coat collar a little bit. Don't get in here and act no damn. Yeah, we had those conversations, and when we were in public, I did not have issues with my kids at all.
Mhm.
Versus, I would see some, swinging on the racks in the clothes. You know how you see them running.
Mhm.
No, sir,
Right.
absolutely, absolutely not. Or just running wild. No, I did not
Mhm.
play them games, and even with kids that I was responsible for, I did not play them
Right.
games. Yeah,
Mhm.
and some parents are okay with that. They get out of line, whatever, do what you got to do. But then you have
Mhm.
some that they child could be in the bathroom striking matches and setting the toilet tissue on fire, and they don't want
Absolutely.
you to say nothing to them.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's yeah. You keep Tommy over there because, yeah, because you don't
Yeah.
like, no one to say nothing to him. You don't correct him. He think what he does is okay, which is why he's doing it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't like that. But I do wish the village would come back a little stronger, like it was back then. But I don't know if it ever will, just for various reasons.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, for various reasons. So this was interesting, Seth. I definitely want to go deeper on the parent side.
Mhm.
Um, when it comes to those who can only be in one place at once,
Mhm.
uh, being in the house by themselves, or yeah, that's a whole nother, can of worms, that I want to discuss later down the line. But if
Okay.
you have any other closing remarks when it comes to discipline or people who are becoming parents of toddlers. Let's just
Mhm.
start at that toddler age. What
Mhm.
advice would you give them?
Okay. Well, one thing I would say is don't be afraid of mentors. Okay. Individuals that's trying to tell you something. If they're trying to tell you something, they're showing you that they care. All right.
Mhm.
And the fact that you have toddlers or a young child, okay, you are an adult or you are capable of having a child. Okay. But it does take other individuals. And just because you're able to have a child does not mean that you know it all. So be willing to learn. And also, I would say this, this is something that I tell individuals, especially when they can, just go to different heights in life and learn different things. And it's an acronym that says WAIT. All right.
Mhm.
WAIT. And that stands for why am I talking? If a, if an individual is trying to tell you something, listen to them and don't say anything. Yeah, I know, but if you knew, you would not be in this situation. And apparently, somebody sees something that you don't see, right? So
Yeah.
listen to individuals and apply what's conducive to you. And good luck.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I definitely want to thank you for coming on and sharing your views on this topic with me. I know our paths will cross again in the near future. So before we close out, just tell everyone they can find your podcast, The Lion's Den with Seth. Is it with Seth? The Lion's Den
Yes.
with Seth?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure y'all put his name down. He already told you, we'll be all over
Yep.
on the left side of the fence if you put his name on there.
That's right. So it
So,
could be you can go to Lions Den with Seth or www.lionspride21. Okay, the number two and the number one.com, where you can see everything. You can
okay.
join our mailing list and you can see different things on YouTube and everything, and we can connect.
Okay. So do you have those available how do you get your guests for your shows?
Oh, so boy, it's so we have a intake form that individuals can sign up for, but I have a team of individuals that look for specific guests that's in
Types
line
of
with our
guests?
mission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in line with our vision, and right now we're out to the middle of May as far as guest bookings, right? So it's real good. We appreciate it. We love it. We love the thought process and the individuals that we've had on, and also the impact, within the community. So we've had freeway Rick Ross on, to other dignitaries, authors, right? People doing nonprofit organizations, other podcasters. We have them on as guest podcast hosts. Boy, you name it. But it's all about the leadership, growth and development plus action. You see, instead of just talking about it, we put our team and our audience in the den, in a place where they can be a part of the change that they want to see. Uh-oh. Think you paused on me. Let me see. I think that's about it. Yes. So www dot Lions Pride. Excuse me. I got all these different podcast, not podcasts, but different handles. So Lions Pride, the number 21.com. And also too, you can see our apparel. We have different clothing, mugs, and things like that. You can always donate through buy us a coffee or PayPal, things like that. So we appreciate it, and thank you for this opportunity. This was super, super, super dope. Thank you so much. And I'll be watching later.